another episode of Tech Talk. Today, we are going to deep dive into some of the most exciting features from Data Cloud and Einstein. So, these innovations are set to redefine the way we think about data and AI for our businesses. So, joining us today is Matthew Walsh, Senior Manager of Partner Delivery Success at Salesforce. So, Matt is a key figure in empowering consulting partners with the tools and insights they need to master Salesforce Data Cloud. So with his expertise in training and strategic support, Matt is driving the future of partner success at Salesforce. So we are excited to hear his insights and experiences. Hey Matt, welcome to Tech Talk. We are really thrilled to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
With Dreamforce just around the corner, how it's going on? So how you are gearing up for Dreamforce?
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot that happens at Dreamforce. I'm sure, as you've seen every single year. It's our biggest event of the year, where you're going to hear all sorts of new features and capabilities that are coming out. Within our division of Salesforce, our mission is to really help partners, and so our two big stakeholders are the product team and our partners. Think of us as like advocates for the product with partners, and for our product team, we're the partner advocates, and so we're sort of a go-between. And so what we're planning on doing with Dreamforce is we've got lots going on where we're going to be engaging with partners. We meet with partners at that time, and there's going to be opportunities to kind of like talk with some of the product team. We're sort of putting together events where you'd be able to hear some of more in depth about some of these features as they're coming out, and we start to sprinkle in implementation considerations along there. So being where we are, we get to hear a lot from the field about all sorts of other partners and how their implementations are going, and where things are going well, maybe where they might be stuck. And so we sort of act as kind of a focal point for all of that, and then start to share some of that knowledge and learnings with other people as they go about their implementations.
Absolutely, Matt. I think you and your team is just like a superhero to all the partners and clients as well. So thank you so much for all your work and dedicating so much for partners and enabling us.
Well, thank you. I mean, honestly, like we couldn't do anything that we do without partners. I say that partners have one of the toughest jobs out there, because Salesforce sort of builds the product and they say what the capabilities are. But in terms of keeping all those promises, that falls on the partners. That's where you have to be able to say, yeah, here's how you can actually do that. And you're the ones that are helping implement all this stuff. So that can be a tough job. I remember I used to be a partner myself. I used to lead a marketing cloud practice back in the day. And so, yeah, it's not easy. And we could, like I said, we couldn't do what we do without all the great knowledge and insights and efforts that partners put forward. So thanks for all of that.
Thank you. And yeah, I know it's not easy, but if we get such kind of support, so it becomes like one unified support, and implementation is beautiful in that case. So yeah, moving on to the question, which is very interesting. If you could describe your work in one word or a phrase, which is not Salesforce or partner, what it would be?
Advocate. I'm an advocate. That's it. Like my job is specific in the sense that I'm answering to a particular tool within Salesforce, and that's Data Cloud. But I am the Data Cloud advocate for partners, and I am the partner advocate for Data Cloud.
That's very helpful.
I help partners understand these capabilities. I'm an educator, talk about like how to apply these things in implementation scenarios, and partners offer such a unique insight on not just like what's going well and what's not going well, but also what's needed. Where are those gaps out there where customers may not be able to realize whatever it is, the vision or use case they have, and where can Data Cloud sort of bridge those gaps? So I love being able to hear like new ideas and help be a focal point for that as well. So I'm an advocate through and through. I would have said educator, but I think advocate's better.
Absolutely. So, and like how you mentioned that you have worked with a lot of clients and a lot of partners, you help them every day, almost every day, to enable. So, what are the most common challenges you see partners face when they start implementing data cloud? So, this is still I wouldn't say a very, very old platform. It's still new to a lot of people, but yeah, I would like to understand from you on the challenges side and how do you really help overcome it.
Well, I think there's two big problems I want to touch on, and the first is not necessarily a partner problem. It could be, but I would say that the bigger problem in the room is, customers wanting to get started with Data Cloud. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of customers that have purchased Data Cloud, but maybe they've been bundled in with what we call a SELA, so a single enterprise license agreement, and they're tackling other stuff right now. Maybe they're tackling CRM, or maybe they're tackling marketing cloud or other types of high priority projects, and they've got Data Cloud on the sideline. They're like, I'll handle that later. I need to do this other stuff first. And that could be a big challenge. And what we really need is we need folks to figure out where this fits into their enterprise stack. Obviously, they saw the value because that's why it's in the enterprise license agreement. But getting it started sometimes can be a challenge. And so what there's whole divisions of Salesforce whose job it is to figure out what's going on with adoption and what are the factors that are keeping customers from adopting Data Cloud. And I would say that finding valuable use cases is at the top of that list. It's at the top because, despite hearing everything about what Data Cloud can do and all of its capabilities and how it helps businesses, it can be a challenge sometimes when you don't get enough examples on specific use cases, what it can do in this particular industry for this particular challenge. And so people could sort of have I'll say vague idea of what it can do without really tying it to something that's like relevant to their business and a KPI that's going to improve their outcomes. So, what we really need to do to address that is we work with partners. We do a lot of education on specific use cases and where Data Cloud can fit into a lot of different scenarios, so that for a lot of folks that may even have an outdated perspective on what Data Cloud can do, and this could be sort of like CDP-based marketing, segmentation, activation use cases, they can find ways to kind of extend its capabilities through things like CRM, through analytics, through commerce. There's lots and lots of different places for it to kind of take hold. And so I would say that's probably the number one thing that's holding back adoption is really like knowledge of use cases and translating that to people's businesses, because it's a big platform. There's really a lot to understand. And if you really don't invest and understand in all of the capabilities, you have somewhat of a myopic view, short-sighted view of what it can actually do. And it takes time to really build that awareness and understanding of its capabilities.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And I truly and 100% agree on what you're saying, that identification of use case, it's so important. And if you see from last year till this year, being a partner, what we have realized is it started with unification of data. But now if you see all kind of AI enablements and so much of transactions can be done inside Data Cloud, and the capabilities have just gone so high. So it's really important for all of the clients and partners to identify the use case first and then see how we can enable Data Cloud on that. So
Yeah. If I could add one thing to that,
sure.
and one bit of advice for partners that are checking this out, it's to remember that a single view of the customer unifying your data is not by itself a use case. It is a driver and an enabler of use cases. But sometimes we get those things conflated. We sometimes think that building that 360 customer profile is the end goal. It is not. And from a customer perspective, they're not going to by itself see value in there. You need to be able to find things that are actually, moving the needle for that particular customer. Because if you can't deliver that and they can't see the vision and value of that in your first implementation, what's the likelihood that they're going to continue on that mission on their own? So you always have to attach with it, some valuable use cases. What can they do that's actually going to, impact their KPIs in a first phase? And just a single view of the customer by itself, not enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am pretty sure you must have seen some creative use cases. Would you like to discuss some of the use cases which a partner has already implemented? Or
I
this
can
is a
make it personal. I can make it very personal because we have a lot of different industries
yeah.
that could be, interested in Data Cloud. But if this is a podcast where we're going to be taught where partners are going to be tuning in, I will say that partners are also customers of Data Cloud. We have many partners out there that have purchased Data Cloud for use in their own industry. And there's some amazing things that partners are doing with that data that's going to help them achieve better outcomes for their customers, their clients. And so, like when we talk about data sources that are of interest to a partner, well,
Mhm.
sure, I can ingest all of the CRM data that I want. I can pull in customers and opportunities and accounts and cases and all that normal consulting information. But
Yeah.
there's other stuff that's a very significant interest to folks that want to be able to do more predictive type analyses on their data. Let's say I have like all of my time carding information stored in CRM, which is, I mean, you can certainly do that. You can certainly manage all your time carding in CRM. There's other applications that can manage it as well, like Maven Link is another one. But they all have lots of valuable data on what your consultants are doing. Where are they billing? What's your margin on that particular type of, project or customer, or you know what I mean? And so like ingesting all that data can be valuable by itself.
Mhm.
But what if we could start to compare that data with some of the actual project data that we've got now in Jira, or we've got it in Workfront, or whatever our other type of, or system is, where we're
Mhm.
going to be understanding what's happening in that project. And what if we could then take any type of escalation that's occurring within CRM, where we now have an account that's going into the red, and we could now feed Data Cloud all of these inputs. Here's an account that went into the red. Here's all of the time carding data that went into it. Here's all the status information for the projects that went into it. Now you tell me, on all these other active projects that I've got going on, what looks like risk to you? And so now when I can harmonize all that information into a single source, I can really start to understand what my risk factors are and
Mhm.
address problems before they come up. And then operationally, I can start to come up with some programs that are going to help keep these things on track so that we don't find, so we can reduce our chance of running into the red in future.
That's an amazing and very innovative and a very different kind of use case I have heard. So thank you so much, Matt, for sharing that. And yeah, that's amazing. I see the creativity, right, of Data Cloud and places where it can be used.
Mhm.
So looking ahead, let's talk even more interesting, going deep dive into Data Cloud enablements and its new features, right? So one of them is vector database. So I'm super excited to talk about that, Matt. So how do you think vector database is being leveraged in Data Cloud?
Well, it's a very compelling opportunity for
Mhm.
customers to be able to ingest data that does not have a defined structure. And there's lots of different types of data that exists out there that doesn't have a formalized structure to it.
Mhm.
Emails, it could be, internal documentation, PDFs, it could be call transcripts, it could be lots and lots of information that has by itself not a lot of structure attached to it. And so vector database is a very interesting and compelling way to be able to create associations between that information, index it so that it can be referenced and usable within Salesforce, and then leveraged in lots and lots of different ways. And so I think it's a really interesting opportunity to be able to use that data. For folks that aren't very familiar with it, I can certainly talk through a little bit of those concepts if that would be interesting.
Yeah, so I think we can have a separate session where we can talk more on vector database and how it actually works. If you can show something which is, I'm not sure if you can really show something which is happening at the back end and how it is getting and what is the scaling, how it is doing in terms of performance, all that stuff and deep dive. So we can have a separate session and we can
Sure.
discuss more of that very soon in our next episode or so. So last question on vector database would be how does the vector database in Data Cloud handle large scale data processing and making sure that your performance is at the bar?
Okay. Well, I mean, it applies the process, and it's going to apply that process to both large scale data and smaller data. And so, I will say that if you're familiar with Data Cloud, there are some things that just take time. If I want to run calculated insights on 50 million profiles, there's just a certain amount of number crunching that needs to happen in order for these things to happen. Vector database has its own set of steps that it needs to do in order to make sure that data has been properly chunked, indexed, and then is available for use. And so those steps need to happen. And so when expect that when you throw in 100,000 PDFs or 100,000 emails, that's going to take some time to chunk and vectorize and then make available. Chunking being the thing, and the size of the document also matters in terms of chunking, because chunking is the process where I take a document and I split it up into lots of different parts. And the reason I do that is because I want to be able to understand the nuance and various pieces of that document. And then I vectorize each one of those chunks. And so that process of vectorization allows you to kind of understand with like real vectors. So like, I'll give you an example. So, your XY axis from trigonometry, right? And you're trying to figure out where things plot on a graph. Well, what if we had more than just X and a Y and a Z and a Q and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and all sorts of different ways for us to be able to understand and measure and plot that tiny little chunk of data in a graph somewhere. Okay. And then now with all of these different multi-dimensional metrics about this little chunk of data, I know where everything else is positionally in the universe of content around it. So now I can start to understand with these coordinates what is similar to these things. And so I can start to kind of use that information through that vectorization process. And indexing just makes sure that the platform is able to kind of access those chunks and those documents when we need to retrieve information. And so it depends. When we talk about performance, it depends on how big those documents are, and how many of them we're throwing into the system. So there's a processing period, and then once that happens, the ability for you to be able to retrieve that information, make use of it, is the thing that flows very quickly because we've sort of built all of our indexes and our infrastructure around that information. So what that unlocks for you is once that work has been done, you can start to include these things in generative prompts. You can start to use these with embedded searches within Salesforce, and also use kind of retrievers, as we may talk about, to kind of retrieve information about specific things that's within that data.
So yeah, with that said, my next question was related to retrievers. So is it something released last month itself?
Right. So like your retriever is the thing that can go into those different chunks and then be able to retrieve valuable information back. It understands what you're asking and it says, I need a specific retriever to do this specific thing. And then it goes into that chunk and it retrieves information back. So you could imagine I'm feeding it scanned policy documents, right? Or that get turned into PDF files, or through an OCR process. And then you could say, well, what vehicle did Matt have covered last year? And then that retriever, if you train that retriever to sort of go through and inspect and understand that data and come back and say, well, Matt, had he had a Tesla or a Mazda or something that was assigned to this policy. And you can say, what was that policy number? And it can find those bits of information if it knows what to look for.
So before vector database, there wasn't any provision of supporting unstructured data, or there was?
No, not until vector. I mean, not within Data Cloud. No, vector database brought the ability to support unstructured data.
Structured data. And with the vector database, we are here the retrievers are here to retrieve the chunks which you have just now mentioned and help in performing better, right? So
Yes.
both are correlated. I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, they're correlated.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example of where one of those might be helpful. So my background is in education, and I worked at a university for 11 years. And one of the things that students really do quite often and need to do um, with efficiency is the process of seeking scholarships to help fund their education. In the United States, education is it's there's not a lot of public funding for it. A lot of it is kind of funded by the individual. But there are lots of, nonprofit organizations and non-government organizations that provide scholarships for students to be able to pursue studies of a particular kind. And so it can become a lot to navigate with thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of scholarships that are out there and applicable. How do I navigate through that entire system and understand what's relevant to me?
Mhm.
Well, if what I could do is take, some unstructured data, this could be my college entrance exam. It could be information that is in an unstructured format about me, vectorize it and say, now, can you go out and look for um, scholarship information that might be
On my
useful to me?
Yeah.
I can utilize a lot of stuff. I could take any structured information I might have, my grade point average, my curriculum, like the courses I've taken, and then any unstructured data, which could be some of the essays that I provided, and then find scholarships that might be a good fit for that.
Yeah, amazing example, Matt. So you're really a gem. And moving ahead with another very exciting feature, which is data graphs in our data cloud. So I personally, we have started using it, but I would really want your insights on how it functions within Salesforce Data Cloud.
I would say a data graph is a way for you to kind of create your own custom data print for whatever type of custom data you want within Data Cloud. So, a data graph is intended to be something that is very high scale read and write. So, an example of that would be for real-time personalization. If you've seen kind of the way that Marketing Cloud personalization works, it works in kind of a similar way where you have a very, very thin database of, an index, and that would be like a customer identifier, and then a print of like a lot of data that's relevant in a particular event, like a JSON blob. Okay. And so, and I guess I am addressing the developers in the room when I say it is literally a two-field table of your identifier of your individual, and then a JSON blob of data that you're curating that you want to have relevant to that particular individual. And it's up to you on what to fill that JSON blob out to be. You get a lot of opportunities to make several different data graphs within Data Cloud because you might want different types of graphs that define different things. So in a service and in service context, I might want to have a data graph that describes service history and complaints and possible escalations in the past, so that when I go out and I want to do something generative with that, if I want to go to an agent, or if I want to build an email and say, can you write a response to this particular issue with acknowledgement of what's had gone on in the past, it can absolutely print out that structured format of data that's available in that data graph.
Mhm.
And what will happen behind the scenes is that when you go to Copilot to say, hey, build this email, you can say, and here's contextual information that will help you with information about your customer. Let's say it's me. And it puts in all of that relevant information that you've curated. That curation process is I get to choose the data model objects, the calculated insights, and all sorts of other attributes that are relevant and useful to that particular contextual thing. And so imagine then you can use data graphs for things like for sales, you can use it for service, you can use it for commerce. If you want to be recommending products, for example, you can build data graphs that do all sorts of stuff. And so data graphs are getting used because of how quickly they can be stored and retrieved. All I really need in order to find that data graph is that customer ID. And then once I have that, and I can find it very, very quickly in millisecond response times, I can retrieve the information that I need and then make use of it somewhere else. So this is a really, really core capability that's happening for things like real-time personalization, and all sorts of other stuff as well. If you saw the latest technical release, I believe this was in July, there's a lot of different new capabilities that are happening like within real time. So
Right.
what you've seen in the past is like when we've talked about a lot of the data cloud capabilities, that's all data lake, data warehouse, lakehouse capabilities. Data graphs is really kind of the introduction of new capabilities that are going to drive lots of real-time pipeline things. And that's real-time segmentation, real-time identity resolution, real-time personalization. Data graphs are the heart of it.
Yeah, so I am familiar with data graphs because one of our use cases are based on data graphs, and we have been doing something to do streaming segmentations, like how we mentioned. So we are pushing the data to Marketing Cloud. But yeah, it's good to know. It's good to know that there are so many enhanced facilities are being provided, making work so simpler and so. I mean, it's so easy to connect the dots now from one system to another system. The data flow is so easy and so quick with the streaming capabilities switched on. So that's amazing. So what are the compelling use cases? I know you have already discussed, but if there is anything else you would like to add on data graphs, which you think is really compelling and
Oh yeah, I'd
yeah.
be happy to. So one of the big things that I think I was really excited about in the last year for Data Cloud was data actions. So, when Data Cloud moved out of the CDP space and it was mostly focusing on segmentation activation, data actions really allowed a lot of opportunity for you to do more within the CRM. Now, with a data action, I can look at moments of data as they change in the platform. So if I'm running a calculated insight and something changes, if I go from a silver membership status to a gold or whatever it is, calculated insights can do a lot of things. At that change, I can trigger a platform event within the CRM.
Right.
And what that means though is now CRM can take that payload of data and it can do other interesting stuff. It could create a case, it could create a task, it could do all sorts of things. It can trigger, a cascade of actions within a flow. And so one of the things that are a little bit of a limitation, I'll say, with data actions is because of how quickly they can trigger
Mhm.
and the payload of information that they can send, you get very limited in terms of the information you can include in that data action. The object in which it was triggered, so that could be the calculated insight, and
Mhm.
one related object. That's it. And so what can we do to get around that?
Mhm.
Here's where data graphs come in. A data graph allows me to kind of look through all of the different related objects and curate an important payload of data that I want to be able to include within that platform event to fire off to another platform. So now I can be ready ahead of time, have very, very fast storage and retrieval of data in a data graph, and push that out to to CRM so I can start to consume that and do more advanced things with it.
Exactly. With that said, now I remember exactly what my team was working on. So they were actually trying to club couple of data from different DMOs,
Mm.
and then data graph came into the picture. That okay, through data graph you can then send the streaming data into the another product. We were using Marketing Cloud. So yeah, it's amazing. I'm getting so many insights which are pretty new to me. Thanks a lot, Matt. And with that said, we wrap up another engaging session. And I'm very hopeful that I'm going to grab you maybe post Dreamforce, and we'll have more exciting talks on new features, new enablements, and whatever you want to, whatever you think is happening in data cloud space.
Well, that'd be fun. I look forward to that. I hope to see you at Dreamforce. I'll be there.
Very
Like,
exciting.
I was not planning on being there at Dreamforce, but there's a lot of stuff that's going to be announced there where folks like me will need to be absolutely ready for it. So now I'll be there. Hopefully, see you. And yeah, I had a lot of fun. I hope we have a chance to talk about this stuff again real soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Matt, and talk to you soon. So stay tuned for more exciting discussions and deep dives into the latest tech innovations on future episodes of TeqTalk. Until then, bye bye.